ISE 2026 is now open.
Greetings to you all. I've always had a lot of respect for the products from Trinnov Audio. Many people in the industry call the Trinnov Altitude the endgame processor. And honestly, when it comes to home cinema processing, there is really nothing quite like it on the market. At ISE 2026, I had the chance to catch up with David Meyerowitz from Trinnov. We had a lovely chat about what the company has been working on lately. So, let's hear from David. Here with me there is David Meyerowitz from Trinnov Audio.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming. Since last time we spoke with you, I think that there's been few news in the company, so I would love to hear a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's been about a year since we last spoke, wasn't it? It's been a...
maybe even
it could even
more.
be more than a year. So yeah, probably a bit to catch up on. So thanks again for having me. I'm David Meyerowitz from Trinnov Audio. I'm the technical sales manager, looking after Europe mainly as a sales territory. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a big year for us as Trinnov Audio. You know, we're moving into this new transition that we term internally, we turn it as Trinnov 3.0. So Trinnov 1.0 was Arno in his grandmother's living room, and then 2.0 is where we are today in our current rented office spaces. And we're moving forward to the new real headquarters. I don't want to call it an office; it does it no justice at all. But a real headquarters for Trinnov Audio, which is really going to pave the next 10 to 20 years for us, really. So big transitional year for us. So that's one part of the transition. The second is a hardware platform evolution that we've gone through. So we've gone to a new hardware platform where we first introduced the Pro product, the new Nova, which is maybe 2 years, maybe slightly longer than 2 years now. And we're bringing out the first product with that new platform, which is the Altitude CI, which I'm sure we'll get onto in due course.
So basically you've been making waves for quite a while now with the Altitude 32. Now it has a successor or the competitor. So
yeah, it's an interesting way to look at it. I mean, Altitude 32, it's 11 years old now. That's it's unheard of in the residential market. It's the hobby is to keep upgrading, right? But you upgrade because you want the latest and the greatest. Mm-hmm. Well, the benefit of the Trinnov platform has always been its software modularity. We really take control of everything ourselves, and that allows us to be so agile with what we want to bring, whether it's a codec update, whether it's a new technology of our own. It just allows us that flexibility, and that goes for all the products that we do. Moving into this newer generation, it's definitely a complementary product to the Altitude 32 and the 16. We still have a large customer base that use analog, and they should. Analog is a fabulous transport media. But things start to move on, and we're seeing more and more in the residential market particularly. We're seeing a lot of pro audio manufacturers coming into residential. With that comes pro audio technologies like Dante, like AES67, whatever your flavor is, in their amplifiers. So yeah, I mean, this is the trend that we've been seeing for some time. We're very familiar with Dante in the pro audio space, but now is the right time to really push it forward in residential. We're very much of the philosophy that the Altitude CI should be used where it's applicable. It's not a replacement for anything. It's an addition to the line. It's a different topology to the 32 and the 16. So yeah, it's certainly a complementary product in that way.
So the user interface would be the same as the Altitudes?
It will be in due course, yes. Obviously huge development there, switching, redesigning completely the operating system, really reimagining. When you come from a sort of pro audio background, the functionality is absolutely the key, maybe not so much the user experience. So that's what we've really focused on, and actually all started with the Nova, with the new UI, and that is going to make its way through to all of our products in due course. So yeah, much more intuitive, sort of software platform.
You mentioned Dante, and I guess when you have a 32-channel processor, you hit certain limits, how many preamplifiers you can fit in a chassis,
Sure.
and with the CI, it's slightly different.
So we've always been able to do high channel counts. You know, with the Altitude 32, we also have the Altitude 48 extension, which will take us up to a total of 64 output channels. Whilst that's a fairly modestly successful product, because there's not so many of those massive installations, what it really comes down to is actually cable management. Honestly, you know, that is the advantage of audio over IP. We certainly don't see it as a positive from a performance perspective. It's not a negative, but it's not necessarily a positive. But when you've got such large systems and you're bridging output channels, you're doing all of this with so many cables, to have it in a networked topology where it's a discovery process and it's just, you know, click, 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 and you're ready to go, it just makes complete sense.
Okay, so what's the channel limit at this moment? I think I heard that it can vary, even in the same model, the customer can purchase the different channel count.
Yeah, so we start at 8 channels, that's the base chassis unit, and then we license every 2 channels after that up to 32. We are working on another hardware version which will, you know, start at 32 and go up to 64. 64 channels sounds a bit crazy, but you know, where that really comes in is for residential DCI projects, and that's where that makes complete sense, where we're taking the Dolby Atmos audio feed from the CP950 or IMS DCP processor, yeah.
But also, as I understand, it doesn't have to be 64 channels, it can be 32 channels bi-amped.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. Well, you know, when you start getting into the realms of, you know, waveforming in bigger rooms where you've got multiple subwoofers, you know, lots of, you know, multi-way speakers, then yeah, the channel count rises pretty quickly.
Okay, talking about amplification, and there's been an update with the Amplitude amplifier as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So of course, you know, we want to keep our ecosystem going and keeping it current, and the Amplitude16 was always designed ready for Dante. Okay, so we had the slot on the back ready and waiting. And together with you know, with our development partners, we put this board together, and we've maintained something that's really important, which is often forgotten about, is the DACs. You know, you're moving the DACs from the preprocessor to the amplifier, or in a audio over IP scenario, maybe straight to the speaker. And we want to maintain that same level of quality. And you know, even though it's all digital signals, the gain matching doesn't go away. That's still a factor. Is not so much a convenience upgrade as just an evolution, as you say.
Okay, again, you mentioned DACs. Is there a difference in what DACs are used in Altitude 32 and inside the Amplitude 16?
No, they're all the same, and that was obviously completely intentional. You know, where you're mixing, you know, potentially the analog output with one of our Amplitude 8 amplifiers, as an example, with the Amplitude 16, you want to keep everything as coherent as possible. So yeah, that was absolutely intentional there.
But also, as a versatility of that product, you not only have a few analog outputs on board, and the Dante, there is a digital outputs as well.
Yeah, we've got the AES EBU as well. You know, obviously we work with a lot of speaker manufacturer partners around the world. You know, certainly from the input and the output perspective, there's still a lot of pro audio environments where they're using AES EBU as the input rather than going to Dante. You know, it's not you know, exclusively adopted everywhere. And then on the residential side, you know, we've got active speaker brands. You know, take Meridian or Genelec or any of those guys. They still prefer the AES EBU. And you know, for us, we've always used the DB25 connector because it's so convenient, takes up so much less space on the chassis. When we were conceiving the product, we wanted to make sure that we covered all of those environments, because the Altitude CI is also available for the pro market for mixing studios and dubbing stages, all that sort of thing as well. So yeah, we really wanted to make the whole solution for all the environments.
Yeah, and those DB25 connectors, they also used in the professional mixing consoles.
It's funny when you're speaking to a residential installer, because they look at that, they're like, oh, is that where I plug my printer in? You know, we always get the joke, which is yeah, it's fine, it's all good. But you know, when you explain to them it's a balanced audio connection, just in a really nice form factor. You know, we sell and provide breakout cables to keep it easy for them. Yeah, it's just the right thing for us to use. It means we can get into that 2U rack chassis that we have with the Altitude CI.
Okay, let's say I bought myself Altitude CI
Yep.
and the Amplitude. So how would I connect them together? How it would, from the integrator point of view, how it would look?
Yeah, very easy. I mean, there's a number of ways to approach it. You know, you could go down the fully managed network route if you want to, but actually, you know, for the residential market in particular, a lot of our dealers, our integrators, they're audio video guys, you know, they're not network engineers, and we don't want to pressure them into having to build more complex networks than's required. So it's not a technology in any way, it's just a, you know, sort of something that we gave it a bit of a tagline. We call it direct link. So on the back of the Altitude CI, we've got 3 network ports, and we can utilize those in any way we wish. So we can have one isolated for the building network where the control systems all live, and then we can typically take the 2 SFP ports for the Dante network, and we can just loop that straight into the Amplitude16, my apologies. So no need for a network switch when you're going to 16 channels. If you want to add another amplifier, you can use the other network port, or you can look to add a switch. Make life easy for yourself.
It's slightly older news, but you rolled out the waveforming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's made waves through the industry.
Yeah.
And how it's going? How's the implementation? And is there a demand for that? And are people enjoying? And
absolutely. And you know what's really great about you know what we've done with waveforming is we've got you know variants, not in terms of the you know the algorithm. The algorithm always stays the same, but just the way we advise people to design their systems. We can go from, you know, 4 subwoofers in the corners, which is, you know, a very conventional setup. If you want to get into sort of more modal control, you know, remote control, then we need to place the subwoofers correctly. You can't just beat the physics, you have to work with it before you can fight back. And then we can go to the full planar waveforming solution where we've got 3-dimensional control over everything, you know, decay, remodes in the vertical, in the horizontal. And, you know, having that flexibility for the dealer means that they can really build a nice performance sort of package for the customer. You know, are you an individual who's, you know, a selfish listener? Is it all about the one seat? Okay, well then we don't need to go quite so, you know, mad on the subwoofer layout. But then there's the other side to it. There's the working with the interior designers. You know, that's the fight as well, right? You know, you've got the wife acceptance factor, you've got the interior designer, then you've got the performance objectives you want. And if you can rid the room of its modal response, which we can do given correct placement and enough subwoofers, that now opens up the design completely. Because, you know, the first 2 things you do when you design your cinema is you say, right, what's my throw ratio for my screen? Brilliant. What's my angles, my viewing angle? Okay, well that's where the seat needs to go. And you can guarantee where that position is, there will be a room mode in that position. And if it's at a really critical frequency, 50, 60 hertz, we call that the fun zone, no fun. So, you know, at this point, we can now really start to, you know, work much more flexibly with the space that's available.
So basically, waveforming can work with as little as 4 subwoofers in a room?
So we're always doing developments, right? So we're not ready to talk about it publicly yet, but you know, for sort of like hi-fi applications, we could use fewer subwoofers. Okay, so this is something that we're looking into. You know, as I say, depending on what your goal is, if your goal is decay control, then you actually need very few woofers, you know. But if your aim is modal control, then you need to start getting a bit more serious. So, you know, for those smaller applications, we can reduce the number of subwoofers. So yeah, we'll have...
Yeah. So the optimal number is 4 at the front and 4 at the back?
All depends on the room size.
Again, yeah, okay,
yeah, so
okay,
it's all about the dimensions of the room, right? So, and if the dimensions are different front and back, so if you've got a riser at the back, you know, the most popular layout is probably 4x2.
4x2.
And this is the benefit of using a proper active technology rather than a traditional double bass array type solution. You have much more flexibility, over the end result, and also over the placement. So, you know, I'm always amazed how flexible and how robust the algorithm is, even when subwoofer position is not ideal.
I guess probably the answer is going to be the same, but if we look at the number of subwoofers and the size of them, so for example, would it be more beneficial to place more slightly smaller subwoofers than like, for example, 6 smaller than
Sure.
4 larger Is there any benefits of going one or the other way?
There's always benefits to having more sound sources. You know, the more points of sound source we have, the better job of controlling we can do. Of course, when you go smaller in terms of subwoofers, you are typically, and I won't speak for every subwoofer manufacturer, but you are typically reducing your SPL capabilities and your bandwidth capabilities. So, you know, you need to make that decision as an installer, which way to go with it. Remember, when you double the amount of subwoofers, you only gain 3 dB efficiency. So, you know, whether you go with smaller, more subs or less, bigger ones, depends on your objectives.
Great. Trinnov has one-of-the-kind calibration microphones, which you cannot mistake with anything else. And
I should have bought one and put it on the table, shouldn't I?
Ah, that's a shame.
I missed the trick.
Yeah, it's going to be here in post.
There you go.
I think that microphone also got a little upgrade.
Yeah, so obviously that microphone is really our heritage. That's where we began. You know, that's where all the fundamental research began, was taking these you know, very high resolution recordings of the audio, and it's become a very iconic piece for us. You know, makes it into our logos, and everyone looks at the mic, and it's the tool that we need to do what we do, basically. So yeah, it has had a little bit of an upgrade. We call it the V10, so V9, V10, it doesn't really matter, but we've gone to an EtherCon connection, okay, rather than an XLR. You know, for our integrators, again, in residential, means they can go, you know, through wire, you know, a cat cable and wire it into the cinema with a nice termination plate, and then they can plug in locally. From that perspective, it gives us a lot of flexibility. There's a chip inside the microphone as well, so we've got power and communication control over the microphone when we go with EtherCon. So the calibration files are ingested into the Altitude CI as an example, and into the Nova when you connect the microphone. So again, it's that usability factor and that user experience. You know, we normally in the traditional way we've done it, you have to pause your calibration if you've forgotten. Normally you do it at the beginning, but generally you forget. It's like, oh, I need to go and load the compensation file. You've got to go to the unit, plug it in, blah. Takes that away. The system is muted. The mic is on and off when it's needed. Not to kind of oversimplify it, just take away the obvious stuff that's just, yeah, it just helps.
So here at ISE, quite a few of your partners have the Trinnov CI in action. So if you could mention who you're partnering with this year.
100%. Yeah, and actually, you know, we've got a mixture of Altitude CIs and Altitude 32s out on the floor as well. So again, it just sings to the topology that we can cover. So our friends at Mag Audio, they're using the Altitude 32 because their system is all analog. With our partner Priscilla, they're using the Altitude CI with the Amplitude16 in the Dante configuration. Alcons, they're using the Altitude CI, but they're using it with AES EBU. Okay. We've got K-Array, who are using an Altitude16, Theory Audio, and Pro Audio Technologies as well. They're using a mixture again of Altitude 32 for their analog system and an Altitude CI for their Audio-over-IP solution. Yeah. Obviously, what we're doing with Wisdom Audio on our main booth, that's all Dante to the Wisdom amplifiers. And I'm sure I've forgotten somebody, but we've got 6 or 7 units around the floor, so very.
Yeah, that sounds quite impressive.
You can see why I forgot.
Yeah. In the beginning, you mentioned your new headquarters.
Yeah.
Would you have a demo facility at your new headquarters?
We will. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as all projects of this scale, you know, there are delays, you know, when you're working with building contractors and what have you. But we're getting close. You know, we're hoping to be in around the summertime, and then we can start building out the training facilities first of all. That's our focus first of all. So we can train our customers in a nice controlled environment. And then, of course, we'll move into the demonstration facilities and start to really showcase all the different sort of technologies that we want to achieve.
Looking forward.
Yeah, we look forward to having you there. We really do.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'll be glad to come in.
Yeah.
Great. So thank you very much for coming and
Pleasure.
joining me for this interview. And I hope that's not the last time. And thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll see you again. Thanks, Kim.
See you.